Hi, I have a problem. I have too many games on Steam. And no, that's not a brag. It's a cry for help. Due to the poor financial decision of having unrestricted access to my own funds between the ages of 14 and 28, I have amassed a Steam library of about 580 games. And after some consulting from my financial advisor, I have been told to not purchase any more games until I either make a decent dent in that pile, or if I complete the whole damn thing altogether. However, there are some stipulations to this rule. Please allow me to explain the method to my madness. Okay, first things first. The question is, how many games do I actually own on Steam? According to my Steam library, 586. However, Steam counts its games weirdly. Separate clients for multiple parts of the game are counted as individual games, like the multiplayer clients for the Call of Duty games are separate entries. Doesn't make them a different game, just makes them a part of a game. So you gotta cut it. Now with that out of the way, we can finally get to the rules and the criterias of this challenge. Rule number 1, game has to have a clear start and finish. I'm talking press start to play to credits. That's all I'm looking for. I'm not looking for any multiplayer games, any exclusive stuff like that, because honestly, why would you want to see me grind out to the max level in something like Counter-Strike? So games like that, PUBG, anything that's multiplayer that's got an exclusive multiplayer like deathmatch, endless loop kind of mechanic, that's out. Also, any games that are just life or survival sims. Something that I can perpetually play doesn't really count as something that has a completion if the whole point is to go until you die. Because I can make that really easy and make that an under 1 hour game. And yes, I know, ironically, this rule also cuts out Team Fortress 2. Number 2, this isn't a completion run. From hitting the start button to seeing the end credits or the end of the main storyline is all I'm looking for. I'm not gonna really try and focus on side questing, doesn't mean I won't do it, but I'm trying to complete these games in relatively short amounts of time, and knowing games like Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Red Dead Redemption, they're already gonna take a while, so why add more to the pile than necessary? Number 3, no doubling down on remakes. What this means is that if I have a choice between the original and the remake, I'm gonna go with the remake and count that as one entry for both games. A few exceptions can be argued, but there needs to be a big enough gap between releases to justify it. For example, System Shock and its remaster are basically separate games, with the remake being a literal ground-up rework. So I'll probably play both of those, but I'm not gonna play BioShock 2 and BioShock 2 Remaster. Oh god, I have to play BioShock 2. Alright, now with everything out of the way, the list is pruned down. We've got a final count of 415 games. Wow, okay. At least that number is marginally more manageable than the original number. When I started this list, I grossly overestimated the playtime for most of the games that were on this list. I expected most of, if not all, the entries to average somewhere between 20 to 25 hours, but was happily surprised while I was doing the research that most of my games actually fit within the 6 to 15 hour range, which is great. There are still the outliers though. You know, you've got your Skyrims, your Mass Effects, your Witchers. Those are still going to be big games, but the distribution of time is pretty even across the board. It leads me to my next point. How the hell am I going to do this? Now, there are several methods I have thought about on how to pick which games to play to get closer to that 415 completion number. I first thought, what about getting a bunch of short 6-hour games and blasting through them to start racking up the time? Good idea in theory, but let's not forget, this isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. An ungodly, Herculean marathon. Then I thought, what about front-loading by playing a bunch of big games to start, really knocking those big titles to begin with, until I realized that would be boring as hell. Those games are massive. I'm talking like 60 hours minimum. And if I'm only doing those to start, I'm gonna maybe do 1 or 2 games in 3 months. The method that I've decided to go with is an even distribution of big games to small games. Playing one very big game, followed by some more manageable, easy to complete 6 to 10, maybe 15-hour games, somewhere in that range, just to shake things up, to allow for progress to go through and easily manage the large backlog of like 60+ hour games that I'm going to be looking at. Finally, the results. At the completion of each game, I'll produce a book report review that I'll post here. I'll probably group up shorter games into multiple videos, because if I have games that I'm playing that are 45 minutes to 2 hours each, it doesn't make sense to make one video based off of one game that took me an afternoon to beat. Now, if you'll excuse me. So, if you would like to follow along as I try to complete this Sisyphusian task, join me and these goofballs occasionally as I try to complete every game in my Steam library at twitch.tv/coldhawk02. Oh, also no VR games. I can't read in a car, much less try and read chat while a box is strapped to my face. This could use some butter.